12 of my neighbors were standing on their front lawns when my daughter shut the car door right in my face. "Mom, there's no room," Sarah sighed, adjusting the strap of her designer sunglasses. I glanced at the 3 oversized SUVs idling in my driveway, packed to the roof with coolers, inflatable rafts, and luggage for their 2-week lake vacation. Through the tinted glass, I could clearly see an empty seat in the 3rd row of David's car. "You'll only get in the way of the outing," she added, flashing an awkward, tight-lipped smile. "The kids need space to stretch, and you complain about the heat anyway." Across the street, Mrs. Gable stopped watering her petunias. A few other neighbors suddenly looked away, pretending to check their phones. I didn't argue. I didn't beg for the seat I had been promised just yesterday. I simply stepped back onto the pavement. "Have a good trip," I replied smoothly. David didn't even roll down his window to say goodbye. He just honked the horn twice, put the car in drive, and led the convoy out of my driveway. I stood there as the dust settled. My name is Estelle Brennan. I am 68 years old, and I spent the last 3 decades turning this property into a home. When my husband passed away 5 years ago, Sarah and David sold their cramped apartment and moved in with me to help me out. Over time, that help morphed into me cooking, cleaning, and footing the bill for their lifestyle. Today was supposed to be a family vacation. I had even paid for the cabin rental. I turned around, walked up the driveway, and pulled the heavy iron gates shut. The latch clicked into place with a satisfying, final sound. I wasn't going to wait for them to come back and treat me like the help again. I walked straight to the kitchen phone. The house felt incredibly quiet. For 2 years, this space had echoed with the noise of my grandchildren, Sarah's endless complaints about her friends, and David's loud conference calls. They had slowly taken over the living room, the garage, and, eventually, my peace of mind. I walked into the home office. The walls were still painted the soft blue my husband and I had chosen. I opened the bottom drawer of the heavy oak desk and pulled out a thick manila folder. Inside rested the property deed. It bore only my name. I picked up my cell phone and dialed a number I had saved months ago, back when this idea was just a quiet fantasy. "Greg," I greeted when the real estate agent answered. "It's Estelle Brennan. Estelle, how are you doing? Still thinking about downsizing?" "I'm ready," I answered without hesitation. "I want to list the house." Greg paused. "Okay. When were you thinking of putting it on the market?" I looked out the window at the empty driveway. Today. Today. "Are you absolutely sure? We usually need time to stage the property and take photos." "The house is immaculate," I reminded him. I had spent all week scrubbing it before the trip I was unceremoniously booted from. "And I want it sold fast." "Understood." Greg agreed, his professional tone kicking in. "I have a few investors looking for corner lots in your neighborhood. They pay cash and close quickly. I'll make some calls." I hung up the phone and walked into the kitchen. On the counter sat the platinum credit card I let Sarah use for household groceries. Last month, she used it to buy the designer sunglasses she wore today. I logged into my bank account on my iPad and canceled the card with a single tap. My heart didn't race. My hands didn't shake. I just felt an overwhelming sense of clarity. But I wasn't finished yet. By 2 in the afternoon, a locksmith named Hector was unscrewing the brass deadbolt on my front door. "Changing all the exterior locks, Mrs. Brennan?" Hector asked. "Drilling the new hardware into place. Every single one," I confirmed. "The front, the back, the garage side door, and the sliding glass patio lock. While he worked, I walked upstairs to the master bedroom. It was the only room in the house that still felt entirely mine. I pulled a suitcase from the closet and began packing my most important documents, jewelry, and favorite clothes. Down the hall, Sarah and David's room looked like a disaster zone. Clothes were piled on the armchair, and wet towels were left on the carpet. I didn't touch their mess. I merely walked past it. The doorbell rang at 4 o'clock. Greg stood on the porch, holding a sleek digital tablet. That was fast, I noted, letting him in. When a property like this goes up quietly, word travels. Greg smiled, stepping into the foyer. I actually brought someone with me. He was in the area. A tall man in a tailored navy jacket stepped out of a sedan parked on the street. He introduced himself as Mr. Vance, an independent developer. He walked through the house quietly, noting the high ceilings and the wide lot. He barely looked at the decor. He was looking at the potential. It's a beautiful lot. Mrs. Brennan, Mr. Vance observed, standing on the back patio. I can offer you cash. No financing contingencies. We can close in 15 days if you're ready. I looked at the massive backyard that I spent hours maintaining while David watched television. Send the offer to my agent tonight, I instructed. Greg looked surprised by my lack of hesitation. You'll need a place to go. Estelle. I offered a faint smile. I already have one. A year ago, I noticed my savings dipping from the constant loans Sarah needed for her lifestyle. I quietly took a portion of my retirement funds and bought a 2-bedroom condo in a quiet, gated community across town. I had been renting it out to a lovely traveling nurse, but her lease ended last week. I hadn't told Sarah about it. She would have found a way to move her family in there too. The condo was empty, clean, and waiting for me. The next morning, Greg called with Mr. Vance's official offer. It was 20% over the market value. I signed the electronic documents while sipping my morning tea. Over the next 2 days, I hired a professional packing crew. They boxed up my antique furniture, my books, and the kitchen appliances I had bought myself. I instructed them to leave Sarah and David's belongings exactly where they were. On the third afternoon, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Sarah. Cabin has a massive roof leak. Rain ruined everything. Coming home early? Order pizza for us. I read the message, set the phone down, and took a sip of my water. I didn't reply. I didn't order the pizza. 10 minutes later, another message popped up. Mom, open the front gate. Why is it locked? I walked to the large bay window in the living room and peered through the sheer curtains. The 3 SUVs were idling in the street, exactly where they had been a few days ago. The rain was coming down in sheets. Right next to the heavy iron gate, hammered firmly into the manicured lawn, was a bright red sign. For sale. Under contract. Sarah stepped out of the passenger side of the lead car, holding a newspaper over her head. She marched up to the gate, her face pale, staring at the sign as if it were written in a foreign language. Sarah rattled the iron gate, but the new heavy-duty padlock held firm. She pulled out her phone and called me. I answered on the second ring. Hello. Mom, what is going on? She demanded, her voice shrill over the sound of the rain. Why is the gate locked? And what is that ridiculous sign doing in the yard? The sign means the house is sold, I answered calmly. What, you can't sell the house? We live here, You stayed here, I corrected her. You told me there was no room for me on the trip. I realized you were right. There's no room for me in this arrangement anymore. Through the window, I watched David step out of the car. He looked furious, his clothes getting soaked. He joined Sarah at the gate, gesturing wildly at the house. Mom, let us in right now. The kids are freezing, Sarah shouted into the phone. I packed your essential clothes and toiletries in waterproof bins. They are sitting on the front porch under the awning. You can come through the pedestrian side gate to get them. The code is 4321. You packed our things, she gasped, absolute shock lacing her words. Where are we supposed to sleep? That is something you and your husband need to figure out. You are punishing us because we didn't take you to the lake, she accused. No, Sarah, I'm securing my future. You made it clear that I am a burden. So, I removed the burden. I hung up the phone. Outside, Sarah keyed the code into the side gate. It clicked open. She and David rushed up the walkway to the porch, where 4 large plastic bins sat perfectly stacked, keeping their immediate necessities dry. They stood on the porch, staring at the closed front door. David aggressively turned the doorknob. It didn't budge. Hector the locksmith had done excellent work. I opened the front door just enough to look at them through the storm door. I kept the deadbolt on the glass door locked. Mom! Open this door immediately, Sarah yelled, banging her hand against the glass. This isn't funny. I'm not laughing, I replied, my voice steady. I close on the house next week. I am moving my things out tomorrow. David pushed his way forward, wiping rain from his face. Estelle, you can't do this. We legally live here. You have to give us 30 days' notice. I looked at my son-in-law. You haven't paid rent, utilities, or property taxes in 2 years. You aren't tenants. You are house guests. And your stay is over. You can't just throw your family on the street, Sarah cried, finally realizing I wasn't bluffing. Several neighbors had stepped onto their covered porches, watching the scene unfold with clear interest. You have money, I pointed out. I know how much you both make. You chose to spend it on luxury cars and vacations while I paid the electric bill. Use a hotel tonight. Find an apartment tomorrow. My credit card declined when we tried to buy gas on the way back. Sarah revealed, her voice cracking. Did you turn it off? It was my credit card. Sarah? Yes. I canceled it. She stared at me, the entitlement draining from her face, replaced by genuine panic. Mom, please. We're sorry about the car ride. We should have made room. Just let us in. We can talk about this. We don't need to talk, I assured her. Take your bins. Your larger furniture is in the garage. I will leave the garage unlocked until Friday for your movers. I stepped back and shut the solid wood door, locking it firmly. I didn't wait to watch them leave. I walked to the kitchen and made myself a fresh cup of tea. The next morning, the sun came out, drying the pavement. I sat on my patio, watching a team of professional movers load my carefully labeled boxes into their truck. A small rental box truck pulled up to the curb. David got out. He looked exhausted, his shirt wrinkled. He didn't come to the front door. He went straight to the garage, where I had neatly arranged their bedroom furniture, boxes of clothes, and endless, useless gadgets they had hoarded over the years. I walked out to the driveway. David stopped lifting a box and looked at me. We stayed at a cheap motel on the highway, he muttered, not making eye contact. It cost us $200. Welcome to the real world. David, I replied, my tone neutral. Sarah cried all night. She thinks you hate her. I don't hate her. I love my daughter. But I refuse to be used by her. He scoffed. We didn't use you. We kept you company. You ate my food, dominated my living room, and left me on the sidewalk in front of 12 neighbors. I stated simply, you took my home and treated me like the maid. He didn't have a comeback for that. He just kept loading the truck. Sarah pulled up in her SUV a few minutes later. She walked over to me, holding a coffee cup. She looked smaller today, stripped of her usual arrogance. I checked our savings, she admitted quietly. We don't have enough for a down payment on a house. We're going to have to rent a 2-bedroom apartment. The kids will have to share a room. Many children share rooms. I nodded. They'll be fine. Why are you being so cold? She whispered. I'm not cold, Sarah. I'm just finished carrying your responsibilities. I turned around and walked back inside to supervise my movers. The conversation was over. By late afternoon, the house was mostly empty. The echoes returned. But this time, they didn't feel lonely. They felt like freedom. I walked through the bare living room, my heels clicking on the hardwood floor. I ran my hand over the mantelpiece where my family photos used to sit. I had packed them all carefully in my car. Mr. Vance, the buyer, arrived with Greg for a final walkthrough before the closing. You move fast. Mrs. Brennan, Mr. Vance noted respectfully. When I make a decision, I execute it, I replied. As we stood in the foyer, Sarah walked through the open front door. She stopped when she saw the 2 men. Mom, she started, her voice shaking slightly. David and I talked. We want to take you out to dinner tonight. To apologize properly, I looked at my daughter. A week ago, an invitation like that would have made me thrilled. Now, I saw it for what it was, a panicked attempt to restore the safety net she had just lost. I'm busy tonight. Sarah, I answered. I'm unpacking at my new place. Where is your new place? She asked eagerly. We can come help you unpack. No. Thank you. I hired professionals. Her face fell. She realized I wasn't just kicking her out of this house, I was establishing a permanent boundary. I wasn't going to give her my new address to drop the kids off whenever she wanted a free babysitter. You're really just cutting us off? She asked. I'm stepping back, I corrected her. You have your own family to manage. It's time you focused on them, not on what you can get from me. Greg handed me the final paperwork. I signed it on the kitchen counter. I handed my keys to Mr. Vance. I didn't look back as I walked out the door and got into my car. My new condo was exactly what I needed. It had large windows, a modern kitchen, and no stairs to climb. I arranged my furniture perfectly. No one left dirty shoes by the door. No one changed the channel on my television. My grocery bill dropped by 70%. For the first 3 weeks, Sarah called every few days. I answered sometimes. Other times, I let it go to voicemail. Her voicemails changed over time. The anger faded. The panic subsided. Eventually, they just sounded tired. Mom, David's car needs new brakes. Do you know a good mechanic? I texted her the name of a shop, but I didn't offer to pay for the repairs. Mom, the kids are asking about you. They hate the apartment. I arranged to meet my grandchildren at a park on Saturday afternoon. I brought them ice cream, pushed them on the swings, and hugged them tightly. When Sarah tried to subtly suggest they come sleep over at my new place, I smiled and told her I didn't have a guest room set up for children. I watched her load her kids back into her car. looking exhausted. For the first time, she was doing the heavy lifting of parenting without me there to catch her. It wasn't easy to watch, but I knew it was necessary. I went home to my quiet condo, poured a glass of wine, and read a book in absolute peace. I was no longer an unpaid employee in my own life. I was just Estelle. 6 months after I sold the house, Sarah asked me to meet her for coffee at a small cafe downtown. She looked different. Her designer sunglasses were gone, replaced by regular reading glasses. She wore a simple sweater. "Hi, Mom," she greeted me, pulling out a chair. "Hello, Sarah?" She ordered a black coffee, not her usual $6 latte. She stirred it slowly before looking up at me. "I got a part-time job," she announced quietly. "At a local boutique. It helps cover the rent." I nodded approvingly. "That's good. How do you like it?" "It's exhausting," she admitted, managing a weak smile. "I'm on my feet all day. People are demanding." She paused, looking down at her cup. "Mom, I'm sorry. For everything. For the driveway. For the credit card. For the last 2 years. I never realized how much you were doing for us until I had to do it all myself." I listened. I didn't rush to comfort her. I let her feel the weight of her own words. "I appreciate you saying that, Sarah. Can you ever forgive me?" she asked, her eyes welling up. "I already forgave you," I answered honestly. "But forgiveness doesn't mean we go back to the way things were." She nodded, wiping a single tear from her cheek. "I know. You were right to sell the house. We needed a wake-up call." We spent the next hour talking about normal things. The weather, the kids' school, my new book club. There was a distance between us, but it was a healthy distance. It was the space where respect lived. When we left the cafe, we hugged. It felt genuine. I drove back to my condo, unlocked my own front door, and smiled. I had lost a house, but I had finally gained my life back.